Hello and welcome to Film Favs. I'm Justin Grohl. I am VTV's resident internal director and movie buff. Today I am joined with...
I'm Aidan. I'm a freshman, and I'm VTV's news director.
All right, pretty cool. So let's start as we always do with some movie news.
News. I like news. I'm a news director. Can't wait to hear this.
Yeah. So last week when we had John on, we talked about the future of the box office with Madam Web and Bob Marley's biopic coming out, and to maybe some people's surprise, Madam Web tanked completely at the box office, and Bob Marley, won in the end. And apparently, Madam Web earned a record over the weekend by having a worse opening than Morbius did in 3 days.
They just got to stop making movies. Sony just has to stop making Marvel movies. It's not working.
See, Sony definitely does, and I'd say Sony's a little concerning because in other movie news,
Yeah.
I believe, as you saw, we talked about,
Yep.
Sam Mendes is making 4 Beatles movies, focusing on the life of the Beatles from each of their perspectives,
That's pretty sick.
and it's being distributed and made by Sony. So it's a little concerning if Sony...
I didn't know that. I was so excited. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Sony's had some pretty good movies. I feel like they did the Yesterday movie.
Oh, did they?
I want to say that they did.
Do they have some exclusive bargaining rights with the label that owns the Beatles music? Is that why?
Perhaps. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's more the creatives get in touch with the Beatles. I think maybe.
Sure.
I think that's what probably happens most often.
I mean, yesterday, people liked Yesterday.
People liked Yesterday, and it's not the first Beatles-centric movie. You had Across the Universe as well, and that one got full permission as well. So it's not unheard of for Beatles movies to be made. But with it being Sony, I think is might worry some people.
And this is the first pure biopic, right? They haven't done this before.
I don't think so. I don't think they've done a single biopic.
That's exciting. I keep seeing suggestions on Twitter of people who want them to do different genres for the 4 individual movies. Where they with John Lennon, they'll do a tender love story between him and Yoko Ono, and then as tender as you can get with those two, and then a McCartney just classic biopic Rocket Man type thing, and then George Harrison. I've seen people say that they want to do an acid trip Studio Ghibli type animated movie, which would be funny, and then people always discredit Ringo. But somebody was a Ringo Starr movie would be if Pink Panther met Forrest Gump. And I'm on board with that. I think
I could see him being a goofier kind of movie. I don't know. What do you hope in the order of those movies end up being?
All right. So I would go with probably McCartney first. I think you gotta open and end on the hits. So I think you open with McCartney and you go as traditional biopic as possible. And then I would go Ringo. Get a little bit goofy, change it up a little bit, because he's a goofy guy. Ringo is a goofy guy. And then do George Harrison, and then do John Lennon.
See, I think you have to end on Paul McCartney.
Okay.
Because I think Paul McCartney has a lot more perspective on a lot of things, especially the events that happened in John Lennon's life.
Yeah.
And I feel because I think the thing I want most covered, I think in distinction between the John Lennon one and the Paul McCartney one is the Yoko relationship.
Yeah.
Because one of a fact that I know about the Beatles, and I love this fact, is the fact that I'm saying fact a lot. That Hey Jude was written by Paul McCartney for John Lennon's son,
right?
who felt abandoned.
Yeah.
Because John Lennon just basically gave up on his old family.
For Yoko, right?
Yeah. I want the first one, I think, to be John Lennon, because I wanted to see him seeing Yoko through his eyes, and then kind of getting everyone else's kind of
interesting
thoughts on them.
Okay, so I would argue the opposite, which is that I think that the Yoko relationship's going to be a huge part of the quadrilogy. Is that what it is?
Quadrilogy. Yeah.
But I feel you got to end it on Lennon, because Lennon moving away from his family essentially is symbolic for Yoko, is symbolic of him moving away from the Beatles. So I feel that would be a nice way to end it. with John moving on to like bigger things in his personal life.
Well, I think also though, I think you can't end on John Lennon either because John Lennon's the first one of them to die.
That's true. That's a good point.
So how are you gonna
That's a
end
good
that movie?
point.
I feel like
He gets shot.
I feel like
That's
the
how
last
you
one
end
has to be Paul McCartney because he's still him and Ringo. I think are
Right.
contenders for the
Right.
last.
Because then you
movie.
could end it on like a modern day perspective type thing.
Like no,
Get all
they might-
sentimental about their
yeah.
legacy. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like one of them has to end it.
I don't care. I will be in theaters. I will be seated for the Ringo Starr biopic. I think that's
I
gonna
would be
so
seated
funny.
for all of them, depending on how, as long as they're not all the same movie.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting concept. This seems like the kind of thing I feel like Richard Linklater would make.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like an experimental way of making a movie.
I wonder how long they're gonna be too. Because if you go 90 minutes on each of them, that's like, and you put them together, that's like one 360-minute film, right?
It's not bad.
But then like you figure, are they gonna reuse film for any of them? Because there are moments where like,
They're probably shooting them all at the same time.
yeah,
And just editing them all
yeah.
differently.
2027 is what's going on, right?
I believe so. That sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like there's going to have to be like, I mean, obviously they're marketing it as like 4 individual movies that make up one story, but like, I don't think I would ever see a George Harrison biopic on my own.
I would be interested because I want to learn more about George Harrison.
Okay.
Like I don't
Rank the Beatles. Rank them.
rank the Beatles.
Rank the Beatles.
Number 1, I got Paul McCartney.
Okay.
I think Paul McCartney is just a legend.
Okay. That's reasonable. Fair.
Made a James Bond theme.
Yeah.
I'd say next I have hot take. I have John Lennon last,
I don't hate that take.
but then I have Ringo second, George
Woo!
Harrison third.
Ringo. Okay.
Because George Harrison made freaking "Here Comes the Sun"
Yeah.
one of the best Beatles songs,
Yeah.
and just I feel like he's just very overlooked. John Lennon, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like just he's the one who had fame kind of go to his head and then make him sort
Okay,
of just
low
this
key though.
very,
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm not defending John Lennon, but I feel like if I were that fan, like it's easy to let it go to your head. I think he's the worst one too. I think he's the worst one because I think he's the most like.
Now early John
freaky.
Lennon, oh, he's up there.
Yeah.
But later John Lennon, I mean, he really did just kind of get like very, like, I'm rich, I can be
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
free as I want to.
And you can tell, like, he kind of took this, like, especially with Yoko in his life, he kind of took this, like, super hippie, super, like, liberal stance on everything, like, artistic priority and stuff. But then, like, he's, like, still making millions upon millions of dollars on Beatles revenue.
He made one of the most successful songs of all time,
Yeah.
freaking Imagine.
Yeah, I mean, his estate's just still raking in money.
Yeah.
So, fraud. John Lennon's a fraud. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I would go Ringo 1. Just because, dude, how can you not love Ringo?
Yeah, Ringo's...
He was the narrator for Thomas the Train.
He was! I forgot
Did you?
about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, he's awesome, dude. He's so funny.
Yeah.
My parents always used to tell me that, like, Ringo, for some reason, would, like, always respond to fan mail. Like, Ringo would
seems like
sit
the kind of
down in his,
person.
like, retirement age and just, like, write letters like he was Alexander Hamilton. Just, like, pumping out letter after letter to respond to his fans. That's valid.
And yeah, and also, I know, I saw something, like, people kept saying, like, trying to copy his style of drumming.
Yeah.
And, like, being like, you're a genius. And he'd be like, no, I'm a lefty playing on right-handed drums.
Yeah.
So that's why it sounds weird.
Yeah. No, I would go Ringo 1, McCartney 2, Lennon 3, Harrison 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people's rankings could potentially change based on these biopics.
I agree. I do agree with you. Yeah.
I think Harrison could definitely climb, and some people could fall,
Yeah.
depending on how they depict everyone.
I mean, they have that, like, getting all 4 of the Beatles permission to do.
They did. They got...
And, like, that's impressive.
yeah.
So I'm sure that there's been some guidance in, like, the script. And, like, what it's
Probably.
gonna
Like,
look
they're probably not going to go crazy.
Yeah, but we'll see.
yeah.
I just hope they don't, like, dance around the lines of, like, what happened. And,
Mhm.
like, they should tell the story. I want to see the story. What happened to them?
Yeah. But, I don't know. Should be interesting. I don't know. I'm just hoping for something this year to revitalize the box office.
Yeah.
Because nothing big's come out, and nothing big's coming out for a little bit.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
gonna. We got
we'll
a
wait
couple.
till
We got a
summer.
couple. We got like I think 1 week.
Oh, Dune 2.
Dune 2.
Dune 2.
Yeah. So next week we have. Actually no, day this comes out, Driveway Dolls comes out. Ethan Cohen's film. without Joel Coen.
Yes.
So that should be interesting.
Rest in peace.
But
Joel Coen.
he's still alive. But yeah, the Dune comes out March 1st.
I'm very excited.
I am also very excited. I've heard great things about it. It's got
Yeah.
95% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
People are calling it like one of the best sci-fi movies ever.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I've also seen people who have said, "Oh, it's too long," or "No character development." But then, like in the comments of those posts, it's like, "Yeah, this person didn't like Doom 1. Of
Yeah.
course, they're not gonna like Doom
Well,
2."
I mean, if it's too long, it's a shame that there's nothing that they're handing out that could keep anybody occupied during the runtime.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because on the very first episode, we talked about the Doom popcorn bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very vile and disgusting promotion that I fell for and
Yep.
happened to
Of course.
buy.
Of course. An
Last time I was
abomination.
at the movies. So here it is, folks. I kept my promise. I bought the Doom popcorn bucket. It's
You
not
gotta
bad.
flip it. Flip it. Make sure they see this part. Look at this. Yeah, that is as disgusting as it looks. You stick your hand in that thing, and it is ridiculous. It's just like suction. Why is there suction?
I disagree. This is very tactile. It feels nice to put my hand in. I mean, like
No.
it's nice. You know, it's very nice. I'm not gonna put popcorn in it. I don't want to ruin this.
Just your hand, or you?
Yeah, just my hand.
Just your hand.
This is gonna be a collector's item one day. I'm not soiling it with popcorn. Yeah, that's right.
Just your hand.
I'm gonna be one of those people.
Just his hand, folks. That's it.
So
Nothing else.
I think that's enough.
Just the hand.
Movie news for right now.
Yes.
So let's get into why we're
Wait.
really
Before we go, I have to congratulate you on something.
What do you have, Grant?
Guys, this is the 3rd episode of Justin's show, Film Favs, which means after this show, you are now qualified for a ceiling tile in the VTV studio commemorating the longevity of this show. So
Wow.
Congratulations. Hats off.
Thank you.
Can we add in like a studio applause?
I'm editing this.
Yeah,
so-
I know. Can you do it?
Okay, since you said so, it doesn't count as me patting my own back.
Yeah, I said it.
Yep.
Yep. Anyway.
All right, yeah, let's get to why we're really here.
Yep.
So we're here to talk about one of your favorite movies,
Sure.
of course. So in the list that you gave me,
Yep.
You had, I believe, A Ghost Story.
A ghost story.
You had Get Out.
Classic.
You had
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction, yes. And it was another one.
Italian.
It's Italian. Life is Beautiful.
Life is Beautiful.
You had Life is Beautiful.
That is the only movie to make me cry.
And
I was sobbing at the end of that movie.
that I find depressing. There's many other movies to make people cry.
I know. It's just so good.
It is
It's
very
just
good.
so good.
I mean, what do you expect with a Holocaust comedy?
No, but it's not even like, it's the fact that like the first, and we're not here to talk about this movie, but I'm going to throw it out there. It's the fact that the first half of the movie is this just like impossible love story. It's about this guy who's so funny and so charismatic, and he builds his way up. He uses his charisma to get everything that he could want, and then all of a sudden it's taken away from him. And it's just so devastating. It is so
Yeah.
devastating. But
Oscar winner right there.
Yep.
Roberto Benigni.
one of the best speeches ever.
But we're here to talk about another Oscar winner.
That's right.
Martin Scorsese. Specifically, an underlooked film of his, After Hours.
After Hours.
So, for those of you that don't know, this came out in 1985. It was a Scorsese movie, of course. Stars, what was the guy's name?
Dunn.
Griffin Dunn.
Griffin
yes.
Dunn.
Griffin
Griffin
Dunn, who I think he produced this as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just. You want to explain a little bit about the movie?
Sure. So the whole point of the movie is Griffin Dunn plays this guy named Paul Hackett. Should I look into? I'm gonna look into that camera.
You can look in that camera.
Hey, how we doing? Griffin Dunn plays this guy named Paul Hackett. And Paul Hackett is a word processor working on Wall Street, lives this boring life, super mundane, same thing every day, leaves work one day, and he runs into this girl in a diner, and she is super sweet. He thinks she's super pretty, whatever, gets her phone number. Later in the night, calls her up, right? And he's like, oh, like, what are you doing? Are you free? She's free. So he goes to the apartment, and one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden they're romantically involved. But as it turns out, he's got to get out of that apartment quick because I think her name is Marcy. Yeah, her name is Marcy. Marcy is like not really normal, but nothing is normal in this movie.
No.
So much keeps happening. So Paul leaves it's important to note that when Paul is taking a cab ride down to go see Marcy, a $20 bill, his only $20 bill, just happens to fly out the window and it's gone. And so he loses. So he's got no money. He's only got 97 cents. And so he's at Marcy's apartment, leaves Marcy's apartment. And once he leaves that apartment, shit just keeps happening to him.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's a very crazy movie. So since it's very crazy, why do you like this movie?
Okay. So 3 reasons. Actually, more than 3. But I'm going to tell you 3.
Okay.
And then to get the rest, you're going to have to give me a quarter. And then I'll tell you the rest for a quarter.
I'm sorry. We live in a cashless society.
That's right. Anyway, number 1, I think you hit the nail on the head with the fact that, like, Scorsese, I know some people who don't like Scorsese movies, which is ridiculous. Because I think even if you don't like him, you have to concede to the fact that he's one of the most, if not the most celebrated directors of all time. Mm-hmm. He's got people coming out watching 3.5-hour long period dramas, with DiCaprio and De Niro. And all of his movies are fantastic. The writing's great. The shots are great. The stories are great. The acting's always great. But After Hours, for some reason, even though it falls kind of right in the middle of his mid-late 80s, early mid-90s prime, is never talked about. It is never talked about. It is this small, kind of tiny budget film with, I don't want to say no names. Like Griffin Dunn was in American Werewolf in London, I think. Yeah. Like, he wasn't completely off the map.
He also wasn't in that movie a lot.
Yeah. Also, like, nobody in that movie is De Niro. Nobody in that movie is DiCaprio or Pacino or
as much as there's not like big names in that movie, there's a lot of recognizable people in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you have Rosanna Arquette, you got you have the Home Alone parents, you have John Hurt and Catherine O'Hara in that movie.
I forgot. Catherine O'Hara's. Yeah,
she's in that movie. And I think that the woman that plays Kiki, I think her name's like Linda Fior something. Mm-hmm. I think she's in Men in Black. I think she's the coroner in that.
Yeah, it's a heavy ensemble cast, but like, it's just never talked about. It is never talked about. And I think to take something like that from a guy who we know is going to make a great movie and then try and figure out, all right, well, like, why aren't people talking about this? I think it's just too surrealist for some people. Mm-hmm. I think most of Scorsese movies are like, they have like deeper themes and deeper meanings, but like for the most part, they're pretty like upfront with what they're trying to say. And that's the second reason that I love this movie, which is that there are so many different angles from which you can like analyze it. And there are so many different motifs in this movie that scream about, masculinity or just like urban society, capitalism, or even like just Scorsese's career in of itself, which I'll get to in a minute. So many themes that you can pick out from this movie. And third, I've always said that I think if I sat down and tried to write and direct my own movie, it would be After Hours. Like, it would turn into After Hours.
Really?
Large ensemble cast, a lot of writing opportunity, kind of a challenged protagonist morally.
Yeah. Like,
he is a good guy, but is he? Is he?
I didn't really find myself rooting for him.
Yeah.
We'll get to that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what would be your... So you see, number 1, it's a Scorsese movie.
A Scorsese movie that's not necessarily ever appreciated or valued compared to his other films.
And then number 2, this is the kind of movie you would make. Is that the second point?
Well, that was the third point. The second point
what did I miss?
is that I think it's one of those, I think it's a thematic masterpiece.
Oh, the themes.
Because it's not so direct that you know what it's about or what he's trying to say. But
see, I thought that was mixed in with the first part there.
Yeah. I don't like that hand motion.
You don't like that?
I don't like that. I don't like that hand motion with the proximity of the dune bucket to you at the moment.
Is there a problem with that?
A little bit. Let's ask the viewers at home. What do you guys think? Vote here in this poll.
There's no poll.
Ah, damn it.
I'll put maybe like a metal poll.
Okay, we'll do that.
You know what? Let's keep this.
All right. All right.
Every shot's gonna be there. So, yeah. So I think the first thing I want to touch on is Paul, the main character.
Sure.
Because, as you pointed on, he's a very difficult character that like you do root for, I guess. But personally, I did not.
Okay.
Because, like, at the beginning, I was like, you know what? I like this guy. I like this guy. I like this guy. But then the moment and the reason why he leaves the apartment in the first place, I don't like it. Yeah. I'm like, okay, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
I'm not rooting for you too much.
Yeah.
And so I kind of view this movie then as sort of just payback.
Yeah.
Like, it's karma coming back at him.
Yeah. No, people do. And, like, it is, like, because he left the apartment essentially because, like, she was a little bit, like, off and on, but like she had like a pretty awful backstory.
I think
Like,
part
a
of it
really
too
awful backstory.
was the burns. The fact
Yeah.
that he thought that she had like severe burns on her body.
and that was like his motive for leaving.
And he got completely like irrationally angry at her for no reason.
I think can I tell you what I think it is?
What do you think?
I think that you're going to see this a lot through the movie. Throughout the movie, he gets super disoriented and super confused, and he has anxiety going into the plot, but it only just builds on itself. And I think it's the notion that like he was going in for something that he thought he was going to get, and then he received the flurry of information, both practical and just borderline informative, that like swayed him to think, oh, like this isn't what this is not gonna be what I thought it was gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
And by virtue, I think that probably played into his own anxiety of like, shit, I gotta get out of here because this isn't what I think it's gonna be. And obviously that builds on itself, and that kind of leads into the whole movie.
Yeah. I think part of it too, it's just like his job, just being like a word processor.
Yeah.
Like, it might be like a boring job, but like he wears a suit, and like he works in like this big building. I'm just a little one. I'm kind of like, why do you only got a $20 bill with you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We live in a cashless society, Justin.
Yes. Well, they did.
Per your
This was
rationale for the
1985.
25 yeah.
This is pure cash.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really. I guess you can also just be like, oh, why would anybody expect that a $20 bill would fly out of the window at any given moment? You know what I mean? Like how? I don't know.
Just plot needing the plot.
Plot needed the plot. Yeah. My thing though, like if you want to look more into his job as a word processor, I think that gives the movie so much more value.
Really?
Because the movie ends with him. The movie begins with him at his computer, leaving work for the day, and then a flurry, like the most ridiculous evening possible, happens to him. The most ridiculous evening possible, and then the movie ends with key players in the movie essentially dropping him off back at his office, where he goes in and is greeted by the computer again. And I think that's the first theme that I always took away from the movie, is that it's one of the more, by traditional definition, absurd movies in modern cinema that I can like recall having seen. In that it begins one way, and then no matter what happens in the middle, no matter how much this may affect his life or his view on other people, it ends with him in the exact same place. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
I feel like it's sort of like speaks to like, you can do whatever you want on your off time, but no matter what, you still have your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Like you got to make it in.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like his decision at the beginning of the film to go and see Marcy, I think is indicative of his desire to try and escape the mundanity of his everyday life.
That makes so much sense, because the very first thing, like the first conversation he has is with like this new guy, and this guy just arrived at the job.
Yeah.
And he's already like, oh, this isn't permanent. I'm planning on leaving.
Yeah.
Like I think like part of that just kind of like sparked in him like, I need to change something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the first major themes that I took away from it, is that like this traditional 9 to 5 society that we have set up in place, like that's the bounds of your life. Like that's what it's going to be. And you can try to like break free, but at the end of the day, like whatever you do one night, the next morning you're going to be back in work.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought that was an underappreciated message, both in the movie and then just like in cinema in general. You don't get that often.
I think just part of it is just the fact that like it's not the crux of the movie, just like the fact that it's only the beginning and the end, and then the movie happens in between. Yeah, that's right. I'm doing it again.
Stop that.
In between those parts.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a movie filled with like characters. Like, are there any that like stood out to you as like you like these characters? Because like everyone's got their problems.
Yeah, I mean everybody has their problems, and everybody is just, you can feel a little bit of sympathy for everybody in the movie. Mm-hmm. My favorites in this movie have always been Cheech and Chong. They play the fact that Cheech and Chong are in this movie makes it so much funnier. They play like
Neil and Pepe.
Yeah, and Neil and Pepe are like these two burglars.
Just
No burglars.
No, just burglar.
Cheech and Chong play these two burglars, and what they do is they steal, because that's what burglars do. And I always thought that was really funny, because they kind of serve as a contrast to Paul, things keep happening to Paul, and Paul's like losing his mind over the chaos and absurdity of the situation. But because it's Cheech and Chong, when they're placed in that exact same situation, all they can do is just like vibe out, man. That's all. And I always thought that was so funny.
I think what's so funny about their character is just the fact that they're like a lot of the reason why a lot of these things keep happening to Paul throughout the movie. Like they're the ones robbing places, and then he's the one getting blamed for it all.
Right.
Which leads to one of my favorite and funniest parts in this movie when he's hiding in this balcony for reasons we'll probably get to.
Yeah.
And he looks in the window and he sees a woman killing a man with a gun.
And he's
and just plainly says, "Well, I'm probably gonna get blamed for that too."
Yeah, she just like 4 pieces him in the chest, and he's like, "Oh, that's the least crazy thing I've seen this evening."
Yeah, like I don't know. I think it's just funny because like they're like no consequences come to them.
Yeah.
And just so much stuff happens. Like it's all their consequences fall on the Paul.
Yep. And I always thought that was so funny, and that's part of the reason that like I don't like Paul. Like I don't like Paul.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many more likable characters, even in Scorsese movies.
Yeah.
But I always felt bad for him because he was just looking for like an adventure, and all the consequences of other people's actions wind up falling on him for the most part.
Yeah. There's only so much like a human can take in terms of psychological torment.
Yeah.
But yeah, personally, I had 2 favorite characters in this movie. The first and like probably I'd say the most normal person in this movie, Tom the bartender.
Yes. Yeah.
Played by Kevin McAllister's father.
Yep.
John Hurd. I liked his character. He was a legitimately nice person in this movie who had bad stuff happen to him.
Yeah.
So like he's what Paul thinks he is. I feel like Paul thinks all this stuff's happening to me for no reason, but like really, Paul has kind of been part of the reason why all this stuff's happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that he's been an asshole and the fact that like I don't know, but like then you have Tom, who bad stuff is happening to him because of Paul.
Yeah.
And then like he's still like kind enough to help Paul out.
Right.
In this movie.
Yeah.
Like I just really like seeing that.
Right. Even with the string of like robberies that are going on in the neighborhood, like he still gives him his keys. He's very generous. He's very kind of like looking out for Paul.
He is like get like offering for the money. Like what a nice dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think my second favorite character is probably Kiki in this movie because she's
I know why.
Because she's a weird character, but she's not an unreasonably weird character.
Yeah.
She's a person that probably legitimately exists. Like there's probably many Kikis in this world.
Yeah.
Like she was a very normal weird person, you know?
Yeah. Just unconventional.
Just unconventional.
Yeah.
I love when Paul finds her tied up.
Yeah.
And it's like, were these 2 guys sailors?
Yeah.
And
like the rope is just so well done. He's like, oh my. Like he takes a minute just to appreciate how well done the rope is. It's like, you have bigger problems to worry about right now, buddy guy. There's a dead woman in the other room.
And then like just her sculptures in general.
Yeah.
I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. The sculpture is supposed to emulate Edvard Munch's The Scream, the poem, which is interesting, which is really, really interesting, because The Scream, little art analysis here, The Scream is this guy, right, who you get the background is warping, and the background is like nature, and there's so much going on, right, in the background, and none of it is concrete. None of what's happening in the background of Edvard Munch's The Scream is concrete. It just blends into itself. And in the middle, you've got this guy whose only reaction to the circumstances around him is to scream, because it's a perilous and awful situation. And I think that really mirrors the situation of Paul in this movie, where so much is going on around him, and none of it is ever comprehensible. And the only thing that you can reasonably do in that situation is just to be like...
Yeah. Moving on, though, to, like, least favorite characters.
Yeah.
I have a least favorite character in this movie. 100%.
Wait, don't say it yet.
100% have a least favorite character.
Okay, who is it?
It's Julie.
Julie, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Reasonably, I mean, Paul is just a guy who wants to get home, and she will not let him get home peacefully.
Yeah.
She will not. And then when, like, she, does, like, romantic advances on him, he more reasonably than he did to Marcy declines. Like, he does it in a much nicer way, and is even like, here, give me your number. I'll give you my number.
Yeah.
We can meet up again some other time. I just want to get home. And because of that, she fully goes, okay, I'm gonna send a vigilante mob on you by making you the burglar.
So I don't dislike her. I don't dislike her. I think that she's one of the many characters in this movie who is initially kind and very upfront and caring, and she reaches out to help him, and she tries to cheer him up when he's in the apartment, which the music scene in that movie is so funny when like he's sitting there and he's like, oh my god, like she's dead, and she's just kind of like,
I don't think she was trying to cheer him up at all, actually.
what do you think she's trying to do?
I think she was trying to cheer herself up because she just quit her job.
Yeah.
And she dumped so much of her problems onto him, even though
I don't know, dude. I don't think you can be like she dumped problems onto him if immediately like during that scene he was like, I just like killed a girl. I just killed a girl. I don't know. That's a little bit.
Yeah, but
ridiculous,
he was like he kept saying that stuff, but then she was like, oh, I hate my job. Did you not hear what he just said?
I think that there's a really funny reason that you particularly like Kiki and I particularly like Julie.
Why is that?
And I think that we're gonna get to it. We'll get to it in a little bit.
Okay.
But I think there's a pretty good reason for it.
I'm concerned.
No, don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's nothing crazy.
Okay. But yeah. Moving on then. Let's get to we talked about characters. Let's talk about scenes.
Yeah.
I kind of touched a little bit on mine's more just a small moment.
Mm-hmm.
But did you have like any moment in this movie where you're like, oh, I love this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There are a few scenes that I think are just so funny. The scene. Oh wait, no, I do have a least favorite character.
Oh, you do?
I do, and he never appears in the movie. It's when Marcy and Paul are in the diner, and Marcy's telling him.
Oh, the husband?
About her ex-husband, and every time he climaxed, he would yell, "Surrender, Dorothy!"
I just find that
Surrender,
hilarious.
Dorothy! I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy one bit. I'm glad that they're divorced. I'll say it. I'm glad.
Okay.
Anyway, favorite scene. I bring that up because that diner scene is one of my favorites in the movie. But I think the best scene in the movie is in the nightclub when Paul finally like finds solace from these charging mob and everyone who throughout the course of the movie has tried to like essentially kill him and destroy his image. And he goes to the bartender and he's like, who's that woman in the corner? And it's an old woman. And the bartender goes, oh, that's June. She's in here all the time. Nobody ever talks to her. And yeah, like, you know, if you want to do something, hurry up because the bar's going to close in a little bit. And he goes over and he plays Is That All There Is?
And he spends his last
quarter.
That's all the money he has.
Is that all there is? And then he asks to dance with her. And it's a very tender moment because it's the first, like, you don't know where she's been and she doesn't know where Paul's been, and by virtue where the viewer has been. But it feels like it's an intersection of.
What's that?
Is that the smoke alarm? Should we leave?
I think so.
Let's leave.
All
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. Fire alarm's going off, folks. Let's see what happens. Okay, we're
Guess
back.
what just happened, guys?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Towentine burned down
For the third time.
for the third time.
And we were inside.
That's right.
The
The interview was so fire it set the alarms off. High five.
That was lame.
Yeah, do it again. Oh yeah.
Ow. Okay, so we were.
I know exactly where we were.
Yes, we were talking about the dance.
June,
scene.
yes. So in that moment, essentially what you're getting is two people whose lives are crossing. They don't know each other. And it's a very tender human moment because their past experiences in that moment don't matter.
Yeah.
They're the only ones in the nightclub. And it's just the two of them and the music. And I think it's a very tender, very human moment that you really don't get much of in that movie.
Yeah. It is, like, after all the chaos, it is a very slow and nice moment.
Yeah.
I actually, and the moments in the Club Berlin, as it's called, I really like the first scene in that club where the people there try and force him to get a mohawk.
Yeah, it's like a mohawk only entrance.
Because that felt like the most, personally, that felt like the most tense moment in the movie.
Yeah.
Because, like, it was, like, immediate danger. Like, it wasn't, like, a mob of people chasing him down and being like, hey, you stole our stuff.
For the first time, he's in, like, a real danger.
No, this is someone with a freaking razor trying to, like, attack his head.
Yeah.
I thought that, because I thought also just, like, the lighting and the tone was just very cool. Like, it felt very, like, it felt like a visual of the craziness that's been happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads me to something that I learned about this movie when I was doing some research, is that even though Martin Scorsese was the first choice to direct this, the second choice was actually prepared to film this before Martin Scorsese came on.
Who was that?
And that was Tim Burton.
Are you serious?
This would have been Tim Burton's movie.
That's so funny.
If Martin Scorsese...
So that's so funny.
Because
oh my God.
This was the same year that Pee-wee's Big Adventure came on.
Okay.
So Pee-wee's Big Adventure, classic, first Tim Burton movie.
Of course.
And, like, just imagine if Tim Burton got a hold of this movie.
So this is, like, in his infancy.
This is in infancy, and this is before he got too crazy with things.
Yeah.
So, like, it would have been wild, and I'd say more visually wild than Scorsese did it.
Yeah.
I think Scorsese probably had much more, like, know-how with, like, the camera work and his actors.
Sure.
But just imagining the production design that would have happened with that Tim Burton movie.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And Scorsese picked it up after he pitched The Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah,
and
it fell through, yeah.
And I think that's one of those other themes in this movie, is it feels very much like an allegory of Scorsese trying to pitch, and almost, it came out before Christ did, but it feels almost like a predictive.
This movie was before Christ.
Yes, it predates Christ.
This movie came out in 1985 BC.
That's right. That's right. Have you seen The Last Temptation of Christ?
I have not. That's the Willem Dafoe one?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good movie. It made a lot of people very angry.
Well, obviously.
Because it depicts Jesus having sex.
Oh, it does?
It does. With Mary Magdalene. Because the reason that it depicts him having sex is because it's Satan essentially showing him an alternate life if he doesn't die for humanity's sins. So I know a lot of devout, like, I'm Catholic, and I know that a lot of, like, devout churchgoers are very anti-Last Temptation of Christ because people think that it, like, kind of defames the Messiah and whatever.
Interesting.
I've always been a fan of it. And I think that in order to be a fan of it, you have to understand that Scorsese is himself a devout Catholic.
Yes, he is.
And there's so many Christian motifs in all of his films, even ones like Mean Streets, where, like, it's not explicitly about organized religion or Christ himself, that, like, gives off those vibes. And I personally, I could go on and home and learn about that movie, but I think that the reason it's great is because it shows you the extent of the sacrifice that the Christian Messiah made. Right. In that, like, he could have had a normal life. He's 100% human. He could have had a normal life, but he decided instead to sacrifice that for the good of humanity. So that was Scorsese's intention with that movie. And obviously, when it releases, it's hated on immediately, and people get mad, and it's almost like an angry mob is coming after him, even though he only had really one intention with what he wanted to do, and that was to promote and defend the sacrifice. And you also got that when he was pitching the movie. So I don't think he would have gotten a full understanding of how bad it would have gotten, though I'm sure that they had people, like, experts who were like, hey, like, if you do this is what's going to happen. But it feels very much like Paul is Scorsese, where he has one goal in mind, right? Scorsese, it's to release this movie and to promote his own faith. And Paul, it's to just go and meet this girl, Marcy. And then all of a sudden what you have is a, event after event after event that winds up changing, the course of not just the evening, or in the Temptation of Christ's case, like, the course of the film's production, but then also kind of just leaves him up in the same spot that he entered, which is people have forgotten about it, and he's returned to being a normal movie director, just as Paul returned to being a word processor.
Interesting.
So I always really enjoyed that allegory. And I think it's funny how, like, the parallels are there between, like, the pitching process and After Hours, and then, like, it just got so much, so much closer aligned once the movie was released.
Moving on, I wanted to talk about just the overall vibe of this movie, specifically how would you feel if this was you in this situation?
Man, I'd give up so quickly.
You give up
Give up so quickly.
Like, what do you think would happen?
Okay. So like, I think that reasonably, like, the first measure of where your own like imposition comes in is when you go to the subway station and they're like, oh, like you're 3 cents shy of getting on the train to go home. What do you do?
Yeah.
And I feel like he just kind of gave up. I think he was just kind of like, I mean, there was like police, right there, and he would shut it down pretty quickly. But I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I maybe would have negotiated a little bit and been like, hey man, please let me through.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I want to take out just like the starting incident, like the whole Marcy thing.
Yeah.
I just like imagine like you're in. This movie takes place in Soho.
So yeah.
So just imagine like you're in Soho, far away from where you actually live, middle of the night. What do you do? And personally,
okay, so not the movie directly, just like if
just
I'm
like
lost.
the idea, like if you're, and then like perhaps you meet these characters, like meet these wacky people like this.
Yeah.
Like where do you fix Paul's course here? Because personally, what I would do is this movie does not exist. I would have walked home.
That's a long way.
It's a long
That's
walk,
a long way.
but I want to get home. I got no money.
Yeah. I mean, maybe hitchhike. Maybe
That's what
hitchhike.
cabs are.
Well, yeah, but I'm sure people
I don't
would be
think
like,
there's a
"Oh,
single car actually in this movie besides the one cab.
Really?
Like after
It is pretty late at
after
night.
12 o'clock. I don't
It's
think there's a
pretty late
single
at
car.
night. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. What would I do in that situation? Maybe just sleep. Maybe just camp out and sleep until the next morning.
I would have been
And then
afraid that
hitchhike.
I'd be killed.
Really? In this movie? There's like nobody on the street ever. Except for the people like in the houses and stuff.
Yeah, but there's also some there's some shifty characters,
Yeah.
Like I don't trust some people here.
I feel like I would have, I don't know. If I was offered like the exact situation, I maybe would have just stayed the night at Marcy's.
I mean,
And then just like eaten it.
I
in
mean,
the
yeah,
morning.
that's where the course stays.
Yeah.
That without that, there is no question of what would
Yeah.
you do in this situation.
But just like it, like just generally, I don't know. I have no idea what I would do. I feel like I might be screwed in that situation because I have no idea.
Yeah.
I wouldn't survive though.
You wouldn't survive.
No, I wouldn't survive. I would run my mouth to the wrong person and I would die so quickly.
Yeah. And then we have the end of the movie.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I'm 50-50 on it. It's better than what it could have been. Because I heard originally, so basically in the end of the movie, Paul gets, like, trapped in the plaster that, like, he saw throughout this whole movie. And then and he's basically trapped in this basement until Cheech and Chong come,
Yeah.
steal him.
The heroes of the movie.
The heroes in the movie saving him from this basement. But yeah, in the original movie, he's stuck in that basement
Sure.
like forever, and Scorsese knew like audiences didn't like that,
Yeah, of course.
and so he called up Steven Spielberg.
Classic.
He called up Brian De Palma
Classic.
and Terry Gilliam,
No shot.
and was like, "Hey, how do I end this movie?" And apparently, it was Spielberg's idea. I think not for the entirety of the mob. Like I think the mob was in the script originally, but it was his idea to have the mob come into the Club Berlin.
Okay.
So I thought that was
was it also Spielberg's idea to have Cheech and Chong steal him?
potentially.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably more Terry Gilliam's.
Yeah.
I mean, Monty Python's.
I was gonna
raised him up.
ask if you didn't bring that. I was gonna ask if you were like, how would Terry Gilliam have entered this movie?
Terry
got
Gilliam
the
would have
opportunity.
been along the Tim Burton route.
Yeah.
Because Terry Gilliam made what, 12 Monkeys, Brazil.
So funny.
He was like probably the winning half of Holy Grail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
funny.
Yeah.
I always like the ending, and it goes back to that theme that I was saying earlier about like he's in the statue and he's trapped, and you would think physically he's liberated, but he winds up back at his 9 to 5. So is he really liberated?
Uh-huh.
I think that just kind of continues the trend of him being trapped in this system.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of it. I don't know how Scorsese even could have brought himself to just leave him in the basement at the end.
Apparently they did at some point.
Yeah.
And audiences didn't like it.
That makes sense.
But
As a
Like,
member
I-
of the audience, I would not have liked that.
Yeah, it's a very
Boo.
cynical take.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you wanted to talk about for this movie at all?
Oh, yes. One more thing. Little thing. If you watch the movie, there are so many shots of, like, the camera being placed up in, like, the corner of a room. It's, like, tilted down on Paul. Like, it happens in the bathroom when he, like, floods the toilet.
Yeah.
And it happens a couple times in Marcy's apartment. And I think it's just such great stylistic shooting from Scorsese because he makes you feel like Paul is, like, in this labyrinth. And that as a viewer, you are watching him try and escape this labyrinth. And he is. You know what I mean? And it's besides just the writing and like the distressed acting from Griffin Dunn, it's a very technical, practical way of delivering that message. And I always thought that was one of the more underappreciated parts of the movie was how it's shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I think we're about done. I think so. Let's round that with a little bit of fan casting. This
I have to reach my hand back in the bucket to get my phone out.
This is VTV's After Hours. The facial expression was very intriguing there.
It's disgusting.
It's not disgusting.
It's disgusting.
It's tactile.
It's disgusting. Anyway. Yes. Okay. So, based on the last two, this is who I would want to play them in a movie, right?
Yes, this is who you would want. If this was VTV's After Hours.
All right.
We're making this.
You're
making this movie. Who's playing who? And let's start with Paul.
I want to hear your Paul first.
You're the guest.
Okay. I'll go first.
I have my idea.
So Paul, I kind of broke him down to just being like super nervous, super anxious, but also just like I think a genuine, honest person who like he doesn't really lie in the movie. He's pretty upfront with like what he wants, and he's always like he's a good listener. He's a virtuous person. And I think that he desires kind of like, again, an escape from like a mundane life. So with that, I'm going to cast Tommy Michaels as Paul. Tommy Michaels is, we love Tommy. He's going to school to be an accountant. So I can imagine him like sitting at a desk all day, just like typing out numbers into a spreadsheet and then like having a thought of like, hey, I want to get chased by an angry mob tonight. And I think he would crush it. I think Tommy would crush it.
Tommy was also the idea I had.
Yeah.
Followed closely by... I think Connor would do the exasperation of Paul.
Yeah.
I feel like he would very much lead into the what?
Well, Connor is also just like a bizarre like this could happen to Connor on any given night, and I would believe it all fully. Like
I believe this has happened to Connor.
It probably has.
It probably has happened to Connor.
We should ask like Connor, have you ever been chased by an angry mob? And like, maybe 40% chance of yes.
Oh yeah, I was in Soho once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the after hours of the night, some would say.
So let's follow this up by Marcy.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're gonna ignore Marcy's ending.
Yes, we should ignore the drugs.
Yes, and the unalivingness.
Yeah.
Because that's what YouTube will allow me to say.
Bleep.
But
anyway,
Marcy.
So. Very personable, very outgoing,
Mm-hmm.
but also like really mysterious and enigmatic, and you don't really know what she's going to say or do next. While at the same time upholding that kind of like really nice image. So I'm gonna go Margot for Marcy.
You know Margot?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking more along the lines of maybe like Katie, perhaps.
Interesting.
Like I think she does have that mystery to her.
Yeah.
Assassin's
Champion,
Katie. I think that, I think that she could do pretty well in there. I also think that maybe, no, I'm gonna stick with that.
I like Katie in that role. I do like Katie in that role.
Yeah. Katie, Marcy's a very difficult one because she doesn't have that much screen time.
Of these, like the thing with fan casting this movie is like, it's just so difficult to do because in so many instances, like the negative traits outweigh the positive traits, and that just doesn't happen in VTV. Yeah, so it's like difficult to.
But it's also who's playing them. Yeah. Who could bring out this?
Yeah.
Who have I seen that I know that they can do this?
Sure.
And so let's bring it now.
Kiki.
To Kiki. Kiki's the roommate.
Yep.
Of Marcy.
Unconventional.
The artist.
Unusual. Also mysterious artist. She lends herself to a desire for chaos.
Mm-hmm.
This is Gianna Apis.
All right.
no one else.
pretty
It's
good.
Gianna Abbott.
I think potentially this is another Connor role. Again, this is a
Oh,
Connor
because we can
movie.
gender bend too.
We
yeah.
can gender bend. Yeah.
Forgot about that.
I think that Connor or Jacob can do this. But I'm not gonna fully cement that because I have plans for both of them very soon.
We both. Yep. I also have plans for the two of them.
I think for most of these characters, I'm gonna say that Connor could play them.
Yeah.
Because again, this is a Connor movie.
Yeah. This is a Connor. This is just a straight up Connor.
You know how we got the Beatles biopics? This is the Connor.
This is
biopic.
the Connor biopic.
This is the Connor biopic.
Yeah. Typical Tuesday night for Connor.
Typical Tuesday for Connor. So now moving on to Tom, the bartender.
Yeah.
Probably the most normal person in this movie.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Jacob for Tom.
I was also thinking Jacob. I think also potentially Demetrius could do pretty well.
Yeah.
I think Demetrius can very much do like what.
Demetrius doesn't give me bartender vibes though.
But then again, it's like we don't have many people that give up bartender
I think Jacob
vibes.
would be a great bartender. Jacob Marscola, you'd be a great bartender.
You know who I think would do great?
You'd be really good at it.
I think Michael Carm would be a great bartender.
I'm saving Carm.
You're saving Carm?
I'm saving Carm.
I'm very intrigued as to
I'm
where
saving
you put
Carm.
Carm.
I'm saving Carm. Yep.
So I do think he'd do good though.
Yeah.
I think he gives off the type of person who I can see him with a towel over his shoulder, rubbing down a bar top.
Yeah.
I think that he could do that. Next, let's stay within the bar and let's go to Julie.
Yeah. I know you don't like Julie, but I think that she's very sweet. She's, I think, very kind, and I think that it's a nice break for normalcy.
But
in the movie.
But you also gotta think who's playing vindictive. You gotta get that vindictiveness in there as well.
Yeah, I don't know though. Like, I don't know. I think the vindictiveness is easy to act, but I don't think that the kindness and the empathy is. So I'm gonna go with Hannah Logue.
I thought you were pointing the main.
No, of course, no, please.
Yeah,
no, I'm gonna go.
Empathy.
I'm gonna go Hannah. I think, especially if we're looking at just like on a personal level, obviously, but then like look at VTV projects that we've done, and she's always been like the very like caring, normal person, normal girl.
So I see Mia in this role.
Oh, interesting.
I can see Mia playing this role.
Freshman.
Yeah, freshman. I have another idea, but I think we're gonna move on now to Gail, who this pick is for.
Okay, wait, you go first. I didn't think about Gail.
For
You go
this,
first.
I thought this person could play either Julie or Gail. But I think that Zoe would be a great Gail.
Okay.
With again the kindness, the playfulness, and immediately the switch. I could see Zoe leading an entire vindictive mob.
I like that. I would say, I don't really think about this, but I would say I like Isabella for Gail.
Isabella for Gail is a great one as well.
Because I think, again, it's straight up, like, super nice until she finds out that, like, you broke the law. And, like, he's a guy who's, like, you know, probably robbing everyone's house. And then Isabella's foot down. No nonsense. But obviously up front, very sweet. I think she would crush
You know what?
that
Actually,
role.
let's hop back to Julie for a second. I think that's where I'd put Isabella.
Okay.
I think Isabella more than Gail. I think the Gail and Julie line is very thin.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's very like they're very similar characters.
They're very
for
similar
sure.
characters. It's just
Who in VTV is most likely to own a Mr. Softy ice cream truck? That's the real question.
That is the real question.
Because that's what she does. She owns a Mr. Softy ice cream truck.
Maybe I gotta put Isabella on the other side then.
Yeah. And then she chases Paul Hackett down in the ice cream truck. And it's very funny.
Next, let's go with June.
I got
the old lady.
straight up easy one for June.
It's an easy one?
Lexi.
Lexi?
Lexi's June. Can I tell you why?
Why?
So I feel like this is going to be like straight up super pro VTV, super pro Lexi Brenner here. But
Okay.
I think like in some ways being a freshman in college is super comparable to being in a spot like Paul was, where like you're meeting character after character after character and you feel like you're never like hitting on any of them. And oftentimes it can get like confusing and complicated. But I think in the presence of somebody like June, somebody who's like older, super compassionate, super understanding, like Lexi, like I feel like you get kind of a safe environment there. And so, like, I know speaking on my behalf and speaking on behalf of, like, a bunch of the other freshmen from this year, like, Lexi's presidency has, like, Lexi's VTV, essentially, has, like, given us that, like, nice, tender human place in the midst of, like, everything else. So I'm not just saying that because I want a good e-board spot next year. I'm saying that because we're super pro Lexi Brenner at BTV. And she would crush June, by the way. Like, June, you don't know if she's a grandma or not, but I get, like, June is old. June is old as hell in this movie. And
I don't think Lexi's going to appreciate this.
Well, Lexi, stick to the plan. Lexi was a grandma and stick to the plan. Lexi, remember what I just said about you? It was so nice. It was so genuine.
We said this last week, too, in House of the Castle.
Did you? Oh, yeah, you did.
Yes. She's getting typecast.
Yeah, Lexi. It's like, you know how people will like typecast Tom Holland into every role involving a young man. That's just Lexi Brenner for VTV grandmas.
I'm not. I don't have anyone for June because I don't know.
Can I suggest someone?
I'd say my other one would be Ashton.
Lexi Brenner. What? Ashton? What?
I think just the quietness.
Oh.
Ashton for as long as I've known him, he can be a very quiet person.
Sure.
And I think that just like, you know, he there's not much going on with June. And I can see Ashton fully encasing someone in plaster and then leaving them.
Well, I don't think that encasing Paul in plaster was like a vile, vindictive thing.
It wasn't a vile, vindictive. I just think it's a funny thing.
Yeah.
I
like
thought
just Ashton like doing it and then forgetting
just
about it.
Yeah. Like kind of like the I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And then Ashton 100% play a character that would say I'll be right back and never come back.
Yep. Any alumni that you think?
No, we're not going alumni.
Okay, that's
We're
good.
sticking solely to VTV now.
I don't know any of them.
VTV. Oh wait, never mind. Hang on. I have done VTV in the Illinois.
Oh yeah, you have. Yeah.
I forgot
That's
my
what
own
I was
show.
But I don't know any of them, so.
What have I become? Yeah. In that case, then, put Pat in the normal role. Not the normal role. Put Pat in Paul's spot. Put Miguel as Tom, the bartender, and then put Sean as June. Allie as Gail.
I'm sure that's accurate. I know none of those people, so.
That's.
I bet it's right.
That's what
correct.
it is. That is what it is.
It is what it is. I bet it's correct.
And now we're gonna get to your two favorite characters. Pepe and
okay.
Gil.
All right. I had a really tough time with this.
There are many pairings I can think of.
Like, it's just two goofballs. It's just two goofy guys. Two goofballs.
Uh-huh.
Are they both Connor? They can't both be Connor. Is it Connor and Carm? Is it both Carm? I don't know. I think that if you want to name people and then just like rotate them around to like Connor's in there, Carm's in there, Jacob's in there.
Steve Inc is in there, so
all of Steve Inc.
So Josh, Tommy, and Demetrius. I think put Josh and Tommy in there. You get something goofy.
Yeah.
Let's see what other pairings we got. You also put Lexi and Margot in there as well. Another goofy pairing.
Yeah.
Carm with anybody. Goofy.
Carm
pairing.
with anybody. Carm and Magnets.
Carm and Connor with anybody. Goofy pairing. So honestly, I think Connor and Carm.
Have we ever seen Connor and Carm in a room alone?
You're right.
Like, how would that even?
I think worlds would implode.
It's like it's a protective measure so that we don't have to see that level of goofiness.
Oppenheimer levels of goofiness.
Yeah. Some below you all the way goofiness.
Yeah, because Oppenheimer, goofy movie. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good cast. Obviously, with you directing.
Of course, obviously.
So you're
but
Martin
not me
Scorsese.
writing, because apparently Martin Scorsese didn't write this movie, which I learned today. If you guys were paying attention.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah. So yeah. That's all we got for After Hours. That's all we got.
I don't like how you're cradling the bucket like it's your child.
It is my child.
I know it is.
I'm taking care of it. This will be a VTV relic one day. Mark my words.
Oh, God, help us.
Go on.
I don't want to.
One last time. Stick your hand in it. One last time.
Stop nodding.
Okay. So, next week, we are going to have on Demetrius, who we did have in this fan cast.
Yes, we did.
And
there he's right there.
Yeah, he's right there. Wow. Hi, Demetrius. And we are going to be talking about a bit of a sadder movie. We're going to be talking about Perks Being Wallflower. So stay tuned next week for that. And a little preview for the future as well. Get your Spotify accounts ready.
Oh!
We might be cross-platforming.
That's right.
So that's all we have this week for Film Favs. So thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me. Very great. I remember you pitched this idea to me in like November of this past year, and I was like, that'd be so sick. I can't wait to do that.
And here we are.
Here we are.
4 months later.
Absolutely paid off.